Coming up on Network Africa today, Morocco town protest demands aid weeks after earthquake. Trial opens in the Gambia over cough syrup deaths. Plus, UNHCR signed agreement to protect internally displaced persons. Once again, welcome. And on matters in Africa with torch of Israel-Hamas crisis, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is saying that Cairo is playing a very positive role in de-escalating the Gaza crisis. Speaking while inspecting military units in Suez, Mr. Sisi added that in light of current events, it is important to use capabilities wisely. He pointed out that the army's role is to secure Egyptian borders. He also said it is very important to rely on a diplomatic solution for the Palestinian cause. And the Egyptian Red Crescent Society delivered a fourth batch of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian Crescent Society. The Palestine counterpart shared the photographs of the moment. The convoy contained 8 trucks with food and water and medicine as it entered Gaza from Egypt late on Tuesday. In these images, boxes are seen being uploaded and unloaded at the residential area in the central town of Deir al-Balah, as well as outside a United Nations-run school in Khan Yunis. Supplies of food, water and medicines and fuel have been running critically low in the Gaza Strip since Israel began the siege of the Palestinian enclave. And away from the Gaza story in South Sudan, the United Nations family came together with the communities they serve to mark the 78th anniversary of the organization. South Sudan became the 193rd member of the UN back in 2011. This celebration is coming at a pivotal time for South Sudan as the country fast approaches its first post-independence elections in December 2024. The event included a spirited panel discussion and a peace poem narrated by young students, but perhaps the most heartfelt endorsement for the valuable work done by UN personnel came from a young university student. United Nations Day is marked annually around the world on October the 24th.
The UN has been steadfast and strategic partner for South Sudan since our nation became a member state in 2011.
It is important for South Sudanese to take the lead in shaping their own collective destiny by demonstrating political will and common purpose towards a prosperous future for all South Sudanese. The United Nations family was proud to stand with South Sudan at its moment of independence, as we are proud to stand with its people today.
The United Nations has really tried so much in maintaining peace and security in a country in a way that they have tried to bring disputes, like they have settled disputes. They have tried to promote peace and then community engagement.
At a 2-day meeting of senior trade officials concluded at the World Trade Organization with encouraging signs, the negotiators in Geneva will have the political backing to achieve outcomes at their upcoming 13th Ministerial Conference early next year. The chairpersons of the meeting, WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and the General Council Chair, Ambassador Atalia Lesiba Molokome of Botswana, welcomed the positive engagement and the constructive dialogue amongst the senior officials on an array of issues in the MC13 agenda, as well as emerging trade relation issues.
3, 2, 1. This is a momentous occasion, very heartwarming. An event during which several WTO members will deposit their instruments of acceptance of the agreement on fisheries subsidies. Each acceptance is a precious contribution, getting the agreement closer to entering into force, which is important for our oceans, for people, and for the WTO. We are almost halfway there.
Let's continue in Morocco, where hundreds of residents in Amizeh are protesting against local authorities weeks after the deadly earthquake destroyed their homes. The area, located 55 kilometers south of Marrakesh, was one of the hardest hit areas in the September 8th earthquake. The residents accuse local authorities of delaying aid and neglecting them. But following the earthquake, authorities put up displaced families in tented camps, accompanied by promise of financial assistance to help rebuild their homes. But the protesters now say they cannot continue living in those camps as conditions are deteriorating with heavy rains and winds hitting the region and temperatures dropping as winter is approaching. The protesters also accused local authorities of withholding assistance, including tents, from some of the residents who lost their homes. The earthquake was the worst to strike Morocco in more than 60 years, killing nearly 3,000 people and leaving thousands more injured and homeless. A trial has opened in Banjul, the Gambian capital, over the death last year of young children who took a cough syrup made by the Indian-based Mating Pharmaceuticals. About 70 children aged 5 and under died in the year 2022 after taking the over-the-counter medicines, leading to a national outcry in the West African nation of about 2.5 million people. 19 plaintiffs representing family members who died fled the civil suit in July, according to Silio Tal, the president of the Gambia Bar Association and one of the lawyers representing them. The families are suing 5 defendants: Mating Pharmaceuticals, local distributor Atlantic Pharmaceuticals, the Medical Controls Agency, the MCA, the Ministry of Health, and Attorney General Dauda Jallo, to demand that they admit that children were killed by consuming contaminated medicines. But they are also suing for an admission that the MCA failed in its statutory duty to regulate the quality and the safety of those medicines. They are demanding $15 million, and that's about $230,000 per child in damages. Now, voting was repeated last week in 2 polling stations in northeastern Nimba County, that's in Liberia, after ballots were tampered with by unknown people during the first round of elections on October the 10th. We have been expecting the total outcome of the poll for presidential, the senatorial, and of course the local representatives vote from the National Election Commission headquarters in the capital, Monrovia. Provisional results show that President George Weah and his main rival, Joseph Boakai, are still running neck and neck, meaning that they are set for a runoff. Well, according to the provisional results announced last week, Mr. Weah has 43.8% of the vote, while Mr. Boakai has 43.5%. And joining us now on the program is the Regional Coordinator for Early Warning from West African Network for Peacebuilding, WANEP. Thank you, Mr. Okechukwu. He's speaking to us virtually from Accra in Ghana. Thanks for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. Now, the news is that runoff elections are scheduled for November this year. So it's even not a case of if, but when. Can you tell us anything more about these election results?
Yes, I think from what you said about the provisional results, now we have an official result from the National Electoral Commission following the runoff, as you rightly pointed out, in the Nimba County. And so from what NEC has released, we have President George Weah of the Congress for Democratic Change leading by 43.84%, while the contender, the opposition party leader, Joseph Boakai, the former vice president of the Unity Party, leading by trailing by 43.4% thereabout. So from the results already announced, the National Electoral Commission has also scheduled the runoff for the presidential elections to hold November 17.
But what is your impression of the total voting mechanism in Liberia and how it all went?
Well, I think in terms of the voting, it was rather very peaceful based on the levels of observation from both local and international observers that were present during the election. We had a generally peaceful voting process. Liberians conducted themselves very well. We had, of course, some skirmishes, some election malpractices here and there, particularly in Montserrado County, where you have the Monrovia capital of Liberia. We also had some in Nimba County, of course, and then also in Lofa as well. But these were really not significant enough to impact on the general credibility of the election. So Liberians conducted themselves very well, and most of the election observers that were present also validated this same observation as well.
Tell us what it was like during the voting process. I mean, give us a sense of all the mood, whatever happened during the elections, and of course, how people took it when it was ongoing.
I think before the elections, the environment was very charged, and of course, rightly so. When you look at some of the pre-election actions and campaigns, we identified some rhetorics, some of the rhetorics that were being presented by the key contenders was seen to be charging the entire country. There were this emphasis on first round win, particularly from the major contenders of the election. And then again, building from some of the concerns by Liberians over the ruling party's management of the economy itself has produced some kind of disenchantment generally among the young population. So coming towards the election, there was a feeling that potentially there may be some level of violence that may be recorded, particularly because of the sense of manipulation as being reported that may impact on the youth's objective participation. But we didn't see all that during the election. I think the mood was very peaceful. People were very committed to the voting process. We saw generally that people conducted themselves, including also how the tallying process was done and collated. So I think the mood was generally peaceful, and then Liberians were quite prepared for a democratic transition as well.
So overriding sentiment when it comes to ballots being tampered with. We know some ballots were tampered with during elections in some of those places.
Yes, I think unfortunately some of these tampering and malpractices were also linked to the NEC temporal officials that were engaged. And the NEC chair, of course, announced that in Montserrado, for instance, some of the police stations, there were some of the temporal workers of NEC that were involved in this, and then as well as also in Nimba County as well. So they accepted some of these glitches, as it were, in the level of those who were involved, and also have charged them for prosecution. So I think those were really the key concerns, because of course the way and manner the voter civic education was also done, and the kinds of engagement that were done prior to the election, I think that also helped a lot in terms of the way and manner that the voters conducted themselves. Prior to the election, of course, there were concerns around whether the National Electoral Commission could be able to pull off an election that they have not been able to wholly independently conduct, particularly since they pulled out of the United Nations mission in Liberia in 2018. So this was really a test case, a litmus test, and it showed that NEC was able to, show its ability to conduct it independently, and as well as also gain the trust of the Liberians in the voting process on the entire election itself.
All right. Thank you very much. A regional coordinator for early warning from West African Network for Peace Building, Mr. Okechukwu. Thanks a lot for your time and your contribution on the program.
Thank you so much.
And still ahead on Network Africa, King Charles, Queen Camilla host Kenyan diaspora at Buckingham Palace. So bring you the details. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Nigerian migrants who left the shores of the country for greener pastures in Europe have been called upon to return home as President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda is geared towards providing economic opportunities for them. And this was stated by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Eji, during a courtesy visit to the Nigerian ambassador to the Netherlands, Mr. Eniola Ajayi, at the Nigerian embassy in the Netherlands. Mrs. Edu is asking the embassy to take up the advocacy as the ministry, through the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, has introduced repatriation, rehabilitation and reintegration plans for the illegally migrated Nigerians willing to return home.
Our mission to the Netherlands is simple, to discuss how we can effectively reduce the number of Nigerians, young Nigerians that are leaving the country every day in search of greener pastures in Europe and other countries. Of course, we know what their fates are. We've lost lots of very resourceful young Nigerians in the Mediterranean Sea. We've lost them in the desert. We've lost them in very compromising situations. We've exposed young people to all sorts, even very terrible conditions when they come into Europe because they are unable to find their footing and they are subjected to conditions that sometimes we are not comfortable with. This is unacceptable to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that's why we're here. We want to see what we can do for young people in Nigeria. The president is creating opportunities, even from governance to leadership, all the way down to creating jobs for young people that will keep them gainfully employed in Nigeria to be able to really contribute to nation building.
Let's head to Yobe State now. It has been described as a state with the highest figure of Libya returnees in the northeast region, having received 260 returnees between the years 2018 and 2019. The Director General of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, Professor Fatima Waziri Azi, disclosed this at the inauguration of the 24th State Task Force on Human Trafficking in Damaturu, Yobe State.
The delegation from the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, supported by officials of the International Organization for Migration, are in Yobe State to inaugurate the State Task Force on the Prohibition of Human Trafficking. According to NAPTIP, the state has received at least 260 returnees from Libya between 2018 and 2019.
Thousands of young, promising Nigerians have died while trying to cross the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea to reach European countries. The few lucky ones, in quotes, are stuck in various grotesque exploitative situations. Now, it is pertinent to note that the dominant type of human trafficking in Yobe State is labor exploitation, with few cases recorded for sex trafficking. More disturbingly, Yobe State has the highest figure of Libyan returnees in the northeast geopolitical zones.
The state government believes the high number is a result of its proximity to Libya, while the International Organization for Migration is pledging to support the state.
On our part, I wish to assure you, the DG, that we in Yobe State, we are ready to partner with NAPTIP in carrying out its statutory mandate of curbing trafficking in persons and other vices associated with illegal movement of persons from our state to other states and even beyond our borders.
The fact that we have a task force that brings together different and multi-sectoral and multiple agencies that actually have different, operations, areas of interventions, and diverse technical knowledge on how to fight and what to provide for the victim.
The task force is to be chaired by the Attorney General of the state, with membership drawn from security operatives, civil society organizations, traditional and religious leaders, humanitarian workers, the media, amongst others.
King Charles III and Queen Camilla met members of the UK's Kenyan diaspora during a reception at Buckingham Palace. The royal couple will visit the East African nation from October the 31st to November the 3rd in Charles's first trip to the Commonwealth country since becoming king last year and his fourth official visit to Kenya. Kenyan President William Ruto invited the royal couple for the visit, which comes as the African nation prepares to celebrate 60 years of independence from Britain in December. According to a statement, the program will reflect how the two countries are working together on a range of issues. These include working to boost prosperity, tackle climate change, promote youth opportunity and employment, advance sustainable development, and create a more sustainable and stable, secure region. The king will meet members of the Kenyan government, UN staff, faith leaders, young people, and Kenyan Marines training with UK Royal Marines, and will also attend an event to celebrate Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai. 10 years ago, George Kaminju, who goes by Muzushe Africa, was introduced to breakdancing, and he immediately fell in love. But soon after, his dream was to grow the breaking scene in Kenya, and then he credits this dance for taking him off the streets and giving him direction.
George Kaminju talks about his first encounter with breakdancing during a dance session where his teammates teach young children how to break dance.
It was the first time I had seen it. Before that, I had only seen breaking in movies. So it was for me, it was very appealing to the eye to see like some of the crazy moves these people were doing. And I remember at the time being like very interested, like I want to do this. And since then, you know, it was, at the time, that was 2012, 2013, there wasn't a lot of information about breakdancing, either on, you know, on mainstream. So you either had to find it on YouTube or you had to physically go to the spaces where breakdancers were. Nice.
He and his friend formed a group and started spreading their love for the dance across the country. Very little was known about the breaking, which recently became recognized as an Olympic sport and will feature in the Paris 2024 Games. However, for Mzushi Africa, the challenges of following his passion are many, even though he has been breakdancing for 10 years and performed in international tournaments like the Red Bull BC1 and recently the Taipei B-Boy City. He, like many other breakdancers in Kenya, are not able to make enough money from the sport. He attributes this to the lack of support from the Kenyan government, which does not recognize breakdancing as a sport. Mzushi Africa and other dancers regularly host breakdancing events in hope that with more exposure and participation from young people, they could build formal structures that would one day help them make it to the Olympics. They often have to rely on sponsorships and fund-me campaigns to afford their trips.
Right now, there is hope. Back then, we used to do it, it wasn't that serious, but now since now breaking has been recognized in the Olympics, now a lot of people have hope. It's something they can do and participate in the Olympics. It's something that can bring money into their pockets. It's something that they can build or add into their careers. For now, I can say breaking it's going somewhere. We're heading somewhere.
Mzushi Africa and other dancers say that they hope that their events and workshops will impact their communities positively as the sport gives young people something to do after school and could even one day take them to the Olympics and lift them out of poverty.
And that's it on Network Africa for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.